version. It's sick. It's degenerate and sick.
Is he tired?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Let's get this out of the way right away.
I was just going to do it. Yeah.
How do you like that? 710 strong to start the night here in the YouTube chat. 537 strong in the Rumble chat. Nice to see you all. Welcome to another edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular.
Hola.
Thanks for watching us instead of football. I know we got the Lions and the Niners going right now.
Playoffs now?
Playoffs, yes. Championship, Kansas City Chiefs won earlier today. So congratulations to our friend Nick Cruz as well as the Vanguard boys. I know it must be a big party over there in Kansas City today.
It's funny. There's a Kansas City Chiefs bar like blocks from here.
Well, I bet it's a nice night over there as well. Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl again. And then the Detroit Lions apparently scored already, according to the chat. They're playing the San Francisco 49ers. The Detroit Lions have won one playoff game since 1957. One playoff game since 1957. That was in 1991. Well, that's not counting this year. They won a couple this year to get to the championship game. So I know we got a couple Niners fans in the audience, but I think America likes an underdog. America's probably rooting for the Lions. 14-0 Lions right now, according to the chat here. So there you go. Yeah, no, I see a lot of people hating on the Chiefs. I got to say, I'm no Taylor Swift fan, but I got to say, hating on Taylor Swift for partying in the suite while her boyfriend plays football. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like what is she doing? Why is that driving you crazy? I don't understand that. That would only bother a person who hasn't been laid in at least 10 years.
Okay, so I have no real opinions about Taylor Swift. I have an opinion about the kind of music she does, but I don't have an opinion about it's not personal. Like, I don't have a personal, who cares?
Right.
But I will point out, I suspect it's the same thing as we've got to get rid of all these Star Wars people who are upset about John Boyega. What, all 6 of them? Like, who
Right.
are we really talking about here?
Right.
So I suspect it's probably that. It's probably that unholy alliance between clickbait-seeking media and attention-seeking social media posters representing about 0.00001% of the population.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. But fun time was had by Taylor and the Kansas City faithful tonight. A fun time was had in Los Angeles last night at the Two Roads Theater in Studio City. The Jimmy Dore live show with a special guest appearance by our own Russell Dovular. There he is seated next to Steph, close to the Joe Biden screen. So that was fun.
That was a lot of fun, but I had to go get coffee before the show, and there was a coffee place like 2 doors down. The coffee was really good. It's like a style you don't get very much outside of an Italian neighborhood. It had that real like coffee urn kind of a taste. It's almost like like that espresso taste, like a little burnt almost, but it's good. But if you ran a coffee shop this way in New York, they would throw a garbage can through your window. Like slow. It took me so long by New York standards to get the coffee. Right. Not by rational standards, by New York standards. They will not hire you to even work a coffee counter in New York if you are not a mutant with at least 4 arms.
Yeah, right.
Preferably 6. Like, these guys are putting they're putting in the sugar, pouring the coffee, ringing you up and handing you your change before you could even say it's like Superman. They move faster than your eye can follow. Before you know it, you have a coffee in your hand and you don't know how it happened. So, and the coffee was very good, but it was packed and people were really into it. And it was that's what's really nice about a live show. Like, you get more of a sense of the community that you're building on these platforms. I was talking to Jimmy about it afterwards. Hey, man, when I'm guest hosting for Jimmy, sometimes you got 18,000 people. If you played to 18,000 people, you would feel like fucking Mick Jagger.
Right.
But when you're doing it in this medium, it's just not real. It's an abstraction.
Right.
Because in the end, I'm in a kitchen.
Right.
Of
course, and you don't get the immediate feedback. I mean, we get the chat, but John Patrick Shanley, famous playwright, made it huge, went to Broadway, did all these big theaters in London. He said he really misses the days when he would perform in venues like this, 50, 60 seats, because you get that immediate personal feedback after the show. People come up and tell you how they liked it. When you do a big venue, they all applaud and they leave. So you get a sense of how it went, but you don't really get that one-on-one feedback yet.
Right. And then, because everyone else is a comic, they all wrote material. So the way it was going was like, and I didn't realize that until I saw everybody going over their material before the show. And then I was like, oh shit, Jimmy pulled a fucking whiplash on me, man. He set me up. He pulled a J.K. Simmons on me, man. I know you're the one who got me that strike. What do you think? I'm stupid?
Right.
But man, after a while, I just settled into a groove. But it was a lot of fun, man. I would definitely love to do more of that.
Yeah,
I mean, they were suggesting like we should do it. We've talked about doing it.
We could do it in New York. We have enough New York fans. I think you guys maybe come out for us. That's an idea. I would love to do that. And thank you to Dave for sending us this photo, by the way. Dave was in the audience last night, and he emailed us, so thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, man.
All right. So that's one thing we got. Another quick piece of housekeeping, quick piece of personal news to get to before we start with the news of the evening. An update from the Church of Scientology in Los Angeles. Russell, do you want to play this little piece?
Yeah, so you might remember if you saw my little LA montage, I went and indulged in one of my favorite pastimes and harassed the Scientologists right in their homeworld of Los Angeles. So we're going to have a little very brief recap of that, but then there have been some developments since that night.
Look at this shit. You don't want to join the church? No? No? You don't want to give them all your money? I have been doing this on my own in New York. Nobody bothers because nobody will join in New York anyway. I used to always walk up, pull open the door, and yell, "Free Katie," but now she's free. Free Shelley! Free Shelley!
In a couple of hours, there'll be 50 people out here.
Aren't you afraid you're going to wind up crying to Leah Remini in a documentary?
It is a party out here today. Another day, still closed. Stay closed.
So, yes, within a week, it looks like, that very famous Scientology Center on Hollywood Boulevard, it looks like they have been harassed out of existence.
Protested, not harassed. We do not harass. We protest, remember?
Protested.
Yeah.
It seems they've been protested out of existence very safe and effectively and within the bounds of the law.
Right.
So, look, hey, man, I just went there for like a half hour and shut the whole place down. So for our next fundraiser, we've decided we want to go to Israel and heckle Israel. And we're thinking maybe they'll shut down. I mean, hey, it worked with the Scientologists, and that place has been there almost as long as Israel has been around. So
it's worth a shot, and it shouldn't cost too much money because we should only need one-way tickets. We don't anticipate we'll be coming back.
No,
so,
probably not. But that's a sacrifice we're willing to make.
Yeah, right.
So go to Give, Send, Go if you want to send me and Keaton to heckle the IDF out of existence. Hopefully out of existence. I mean, look, it's a crazy idea, but what other play do we have?
Of course. Of course. Word from producer Jake, round of applause for Jake, is that we've hit 666 on Rumble. So we're going to do this one more time. Big, beautiful crowd here tonight. Thank you guys all very much for being here. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button over on Rumble. We got Super Chats and Rumble rants that we will be getting to in due time. So thank you all very, very much for being here. Actually, no Rumble rants yet. These were old ones. But send them if you got them. We got Jake here to field them tonight. Reminder, we will be doing our post-show Q&A exclusively on Rumble after the show tonight. Patrons, paid Substackers, paid Locals members will have call-in access to that Q&A. Everybody is welcome to watch and submit questions in the chat. So we will be switching to Rumble after the show for our after party here. All right, so let's get into some news. Folks, this is not a prepared segment, but this is some news that broke today, and we think it's pretty significant. So as long as we are here talking about world events, we should mention 3 U.S. troops killed by Iran-backed drone strike in Jordan. Officials say Biden vows retaliation. Iran-backed militants killed 3 American service members and wounded more than 24 others in a drone attack in Jordan on Sunday, U.S. officials said, with President Joe Biden warning that the strike will be met with American retaliation. The deaths are expected to spur more U.S. involvement in the region, since they mark the first in the line of fire for American troops since the start of the Israel-Hamas war in October in response to Hamas's terror attack. The U.S. has supported Israel against Hamas in Gaza while trying to prevent fighting from enveloping the broader Middle East, even as Iran-supported militants have carried out a series of strikes in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, in opposition to Israel's campaign. But Pentagon officials have said that deaths of American service members would elicit a strong response, though such a step could draw the U.S. and other regional and international powers further into a mushrooming conflict. Have no doubt we will hold all those responsible to account at a time and in a manner of our choosing, Biden said in a statement today. So remember that Tucker Carlson quote?
We're going to Nord Stream those bitches.
Yeah, right, exactly. Remember that Tucker Carlson quote? You know, expect a different world by election day. Yeah, this could be what he's getting at. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I will also say, you know, Trump is the presumptive nominee. I would frame the prospect of him becoming president this way. If he's able to become president, I think a lot of us, including myself, really have to reevaluate how much power we invest in the deep state and the establishment. Because if they can't stop that, a lot of what we believe is wrong.
Well, you also have to, I mean, the other side of that is you also have to question what kind of threat he actually poses to it, right?
It's true. It's true. But they clearly, desperately do not want him in that position.
No. Well, look, it's a situation. We're going to cover a bit of the border developments on our Patreon stream tomorrow. Oh, by the way, folks, we'll be live for our second and final Patreon stream of January tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, because we owe you guys one more show, and Russell is hosting Jimmy Dore this week, and so we're doing that tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So we are going to do a border story tomorrow. But, you know, much in the way that's really... What's that?
How about 9?
All right, we'll do it 9. I don't care.
I'll
do it 9 o'clock.
I want to go out. I thought I was going to have the... Yeah. All right.
All right, we'll do it 9 o'clock. Fine. Sold. Much in the same way that is going to be a question of who blinks first, I think it's a question of who blinks first is whether Trump gets in also, right? I mean, look, the Texas governor now has the backing of a lot of the Republican governors. Does Biden want to push it to an armed conflict? Does he want to push it that far? Can he push it that far? Really? It's a similar type dynamic, right? How much do they want to stop Trump? And that is very much dependent on the question of, you know, how much of a threat does Trump actually pose to the sequence of things?
I think it goes beyond that. I think it's become a real contest. Like, symbolically, the authority and the legitimacy of the establishment is hanging by a thread, if by a thread at all.
Right.
And this figure that they clearly are completely opposed to winning, I don't think they'll want to allow that momentum to populist movements. I don't think they'll want to see them heartened and inspired by something like that.
Sure. No, that's absolutely an angle as well. No doubt about that. All right, folks, we're going to take a couple super chats and then we're going to get into our prepared segments. Hobbs 45, thanks for the $11. I started posting in 1994, back in the days of CompuServe and Prodigy. I remember Prodigy. I used to play that, what's the game? Minesweeper, and I think they had Othello on Prodigy. What's Othello? What is it called? They called it Othello on Prodigy, but it's not. It's the white and the black pieces.
Yeah, it's a board game.
Yeah, it's a board game. I forget what it's called.
I remember that when I was a kid.
On Prodigy.
They used to have Orson Welles advertise that.
Yeah. I forget what it's called. People will know.
It really was the Wild West. It was different times.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. It's a very problematic title for that game. That wasn't the official title. That's what they called it on Prodigy, though. We didn't even know what to censor. Yeah, those were the Wild West days. I remember Prodigy. We had Prodigy when I was a kid. Thank you, Hobbs. Let's give a virtual cowbell ring to Daryl Deachman. Thanks for the $69.99 Canadian dollars. Thank you very much. It's very generous of you. Here's towards Dobular's hip replacement surgery he's going to need, judging by how last episode ended. Yes, when Russell fell out of his chair. Thank you for that kind donation. And Daryl, I don't know if you were here last time. We did thank you at the top of last show for the generous donation you made at the tail end of the previous episode. Daryl gave us a very big donation as we logged off 2 shows ago, and we thank you for that last time.
That's right.
I don't know if you were here for that one, but in case you weren't, thank you for that one too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that chair was the kind of chair that would be designed by a town full of drunks. Sober people would not design a chair that way. Now, New Orleans is very much about form over function. Everything looks really nice, but it doesn't necessarily work.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's funny, that somebody else mentioned that you look like you were laying down because that wall looks like a floor. It looks like a hardwood floor behind you.
It is, of American cities, I don't think there is another city as fixated on aesthetics as New Orleans is. Like, really. Like, they don't just throw up a house, right? It's got to be purple and yellow trim and
right.
Some skeletons drinking champagne and rocking chairs. There's got to be a death tableau. There's got to be some sign in French. They have to throw all that shit in there, it's a very, and that's one of the reasons people find it so entrancing. I think Truman Capote said, in America, there's New York and there's New Orleans and everything else is Cleveland.
Yes, that is his quote. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Good quote. Jake says he thinks the name of that game is Go. Go? That doesn't ring a bell, but thank you for that. It might be. Might be right. Where's my money, Bishop? Says Tony B. Thank you, Tony B. And China Billy, I guess you're watching both, bro, on YouTube and Rumble, I assume, or you're watching the game and us. Is that what you're saying? So you got the game muted and you're listening to us. I guess that's what you mean. Well, I hope you guys are.
It's like when you play Dark Side of the Moon with the Wizard of Oz.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Got it all synced up just right.
Exactly. Paul McCallamont, rugby is for real, man. American football. What's with all that helmet, shoulder pad shite? Yeah. Well, it doesn't stop them from getting those head injuries. So don't worry. Don't worry. I think they're playing plenty rough as it is. Stay blessed. Thanks for the $10. Good morning. Saving the world is time consuming. Yeah, you're not kidding. Not kidding.
Damn right.
Okay. Let's go do some segments. So, folks, the International Court of Justice gave their preliminary ruling on Friday morning. I snuck out a very, very quick take as that ruling came in. But I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive on this because I know that many were happy with the fact that the ICJ was very hard on Israel in their ruling, but many were also very disappointed that they did not call for an immediate across-the-board ceasefire. The Wall Street Journal, of course, ran with the latter sentiment there. This is the Wall Street Journal's headline: World Court rejects demand for Gaza ceasefire. International Court of Justice orders Israel to take measures to prevent destruction of Palestinian community, avoid incitement, and facilitate humanitarian aid. The bold type there that they rejected the demand for a ceasefire. So did this one, the Federation for Defense of Democracies. That's one of those evil institutions. Whenever there's some sort of organization that's devoted to protecting democracy, you pretty much know what that's about. And here's the New York Times video. UN court stops short of calling for ceasefire in Gaza. Okay, so those are just a few of the spin headlines there. But I wanted to show you guys a little bit of video from this because I apparently was not alone in my assumption that the World Court would not call for a ceasefire. Norm Finkelstein apparently did not expect them to call for a ceasefire either. And by the way, Russ and I are going to be interviewing Norm on the Jimmy Dore Show this Thursday, February 1st. Different schedule for the Jimmy Show this week. But we will be talking about the ICJ ruling, obviously, with Norm, as well as a few other topics like 70s exploitation cinema, things like that.
Yeah, we're going to make them watch The Warriors, and we're going to tell them it's live from Gaza.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's what will get them to watch it.
But I did not expect them to call for a ceasefire simply because of the phase of the trial that we're in. If you put it in layman's terms, this is sort of the indictment phase of a criminal trial. They weren't expected to give a final ruling, guilty or not guilty, of genocide or not. This was the phase where they determined whether there was sufficient evidence to move forward. Now, I know people say, well, in that case, then what's the point? Because they're not going to stop the violence in Gaza going at that pace. And you're absolutely 100% right. The way I see this, there's kind of two tracks that we're on here. There's justice for Gaza, and then the more urgent track is obviously liberation for Gaza. And this ICJ trial very important in establishing justice for Gaza. But no, there was never any hope that this was going to free the people of the hell that they are enduring in this moment. Even if they did order for a ceasefire, Netanyahu would simply tell them to go get their fucking shine box, and we would back him up in that. So I totally understand people's frustration and anger that they didn't call for a ceasefire, but I didn't expect that to happen because I didn't expect the final verdict. And one more thing, so I just want to put a button on this. I would caution people not to emphasize the lack of a ceasefire demand simply because that is Israel's propaganda point. You're doing the Zionist propaganda for them if you parrot that, because some in Israel have parroted that, and of course the Israel-friendly media like the Wall Street Journal are parroting that. So don't give them the propaganda win when they didn't earn it. The fact of the matter is this was a 15-2 ruling against Israel, and as I'm going to show you in some video, it seems pretty obvious that they are going to be found guilty in the long run, which is going to give lots of legitimacy to sanctions, to boycotts, to all sorts of penalties down the road. Israel will be a pariah state, in large part, I think, because of what's happening at the ICJ moving forward. And we're going to get to some video in a moment, but go ahead. I know I monologued a bit there.
No, I've been told that some European countries, including England, have it in their law that they cannot be doing business or maintaining relations with states that are guilty by the UN court's definition of genocide. So I have to do more research into this. This is something I was told, that part of the purpose of this is you force a lot of these European countries to actually have to break ties with Israel.
Exactly. Yes, that's just one of many consequences that they'll face down the road. Later on in the stream, we're going to be showing some clips from the media this weekend where you noticed a much sharper angle against Israel than we've seen last week. I can't think that has nothing to do with this ICJ ruling. So most of you guys have already seen the verdict, the orders for them to cease potentially genocidal operations. They basically didn't call for a ceasefire. They said you have to stop killing people indiscriminately. You have to stop imposing conditions on the Gazan people that is intent to cause them physical and psychological harm. We've all seen that. What most of you guys haven't seen, though, is the court going on pretty much at length, establishing that, yes, the Palestinian people are a protected group, and that, yes, there is evidence spelled out in court of Israel's violation. So this is about 6 minutes. I know it's a little bit on the lengthy side, but I think it's important to show this because this is stuff that a lot of people have not seen yet, because this was taken, I just took this from the live stream, which was a few hours long because I was watching it that morning. So here we have, first, the judge outlines why the people of Gaza constitute a protected group, which is the first hurdle, and then we'll see her lay out some of the evidence that Israel has in fact committed genocide.
Recalls that in accordance with Article 1 of the Convention, all states parties thereto have undertaken to prevent and to punish the crime of genocide. Article 2 provides that, I quote, genocide means any of the following acts committed with an intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. A, killing members of the group. B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. E, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. End of quote. Pursuant to Article 3 of the Genocide Convention, the following acts are also prohibited by the Convention: conspiracy to commit genocide, direct and public incitement to commit genocide, attempt to commit genocide, and complicity in genocide. The provisions of the Convention are intended to protect the members of a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group from acts of genocide or any other punishable acts enumerated in Article 3. The Court considers that there is a correlation between the rights of members of groups protected under the Genocide Convention, the obligations incumbent on state parties thereto, and the right of any state party to seek compliance therewith by another state party. As the Court has stated in other cases, in order for acts to fall within the scope of Article 2 of the Convention, the intent must be to destroy at least a substantial part of a particular group. This is demanded by the very nature of the crime of genocide, since the object and purpose of the convention as a whole is to prevent the intentional destruction of groups. The part targeted must be significant enough to have an impact on the group as a whole. The Palestinians appear to constitute a distinct national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, and hence a protected group within the meaning of Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. Recent information indicates that 25,700 Palestinians have been killed. Over 63,000 injuries have been reported. Over 360 housing units have been destroyed or partially damaged. And approximately 1.7 million persons have been internally displaced.
Wow, this does not sound like a vindication.
The court takes note in this regard.
No. Doesn't sound like vindication so far.
No, I saw right away, as soon as this verdict dropped, I saw some sick fucking Zionists that I know. I really refrain from ever getting into it with them because then I will lose my window into what they're doing and what they're saying.
Right, you have to block the treatment. Yeah,
exactly. I'm really resisting that impulse. But yeah, the ICJ has dismissed this ridiculous genocide charge, and now hopefully we can move on and defund the relief organization, which that's a whole other story we need to get into. We don't have it set up for tonight, but what is it? The UN?
Yeah, UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency, which is the Palestinian Refugee Relief Fund. That's now being defunded based on accusations by Israel pending further investigation. Notice they shoot first and ask questions later when Israel asks for something.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And even if it's completely true, you're talking about 12 people out of an organization of 3,000 people.
Right.
At a moment when there's a genocide.
Yep.
Where these people have never needed that help more than they do now. And you're really going to... Are we really, as the U.S., Biden is already, as we'll see later, getting killed in the Muslim community, politically speaking. And we're going to cut off the main source of providing aid to the Palestinians on top of continuing to fund Israel?
Yeah, no, just absolutely sick. But I want to play the rest of this because here she lays out evidence of genocide. And you tell me if this sounds like a win for Israel.
Of the statement by the United Nations Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, Mr. Martin Griffiths, on 5 January 2024. I quote, "Gaza has become a place of death and despair. Families are sleeping in the open as temperatures plummet. Areas where civilians were told to relocate for their safety have come under bombardment. Medical facilities are under relentless attack. A public health disaster is unfolding. Gaza has simply become uninhabitable. Its people are witnessing daily threats to their very existence while the world watches on." End of quote. Following a mission to North Gaza, the World Health Organization reported that as of 21 December 2023, I quote, "an unprecedented 93% of the population of Gaza is facing crisis levels of hunger with insufficient food and high levels of malnutrition." End of quote. The court further notes the statement issued by the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, or UNRWA, Mr. Philippe Lazzarini, on 13 January 2024. I quote, "It's been 100 days since the devastating war started, killing and displacing people in Gaza following the horrific attacks that Hamas and other groups carried out against people in Israel. It's been 100 days of ordeal and anxiety for hostages and their families. In the past 100 days, sustained bombardment across the Gaza Strip caused the massive displacement of a population that is in a state of flux, constantly uprooted and forced to leave overnight, only to move to places which are just as unsafe. This war affected more than 2 million people, the entire population of Gaza. Many will carry lifelong scars, both physical and psychological. The vast majority, including children, are deeply traumatized. Overcrowded and unsanitary UNRWA shelters have become home to more than 1.4 million people. They lack everything, from food to hygiene to privacy. People live in inhumane conditions where diseases are spreading, including among children. They live through the unlivable with the clock ticking fast towards famine."
All right, now keep in mind, we're almost done with this, but keep in mind, Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, items A and B, respectively, are killing members of the group and causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. But item C, which she was careful to read, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. So genocide doesn't mean necessarily you have to line everybody up and shoot them. When you create conditions that make life unlivable in whole or in part against a protected group, that constitutes genocide, and that's exactly what she is describing point by point. This went on a lot longer than we're going to show you, but I do want to give you guys a sense of this.
The plight of children in Gaza is especially heartbreaking. An entire generation of children is traumatized and will take years to heal. Thousands have been killed, maimed, and orphaned. Hundreds of thousands are deprived of education. Their future is in jeopardy with far-reaching and long-lasting consequences. The UNRWA Commissioner General also stated that the crisis in Gaza is, I quote, compounded by dehumanizing language, end of quote.
Okay, so she just described some of the conditions that the Gazan people are living under. Now she's going to describe evidence of intent through quoting a lot of high-ranking Israeli officials.
In this regard, the court has taken note of a number of statements made by senior Israeli officials. It calls attention in particular to the following examples. On 9 October 2023, Mr. Yoav Gallant, Defense Minister of Israel, announced that he had ordered a complete siege of Gaza City, and then that there would be no electricity, no food, no fuel, and that everything was closed. On the following day, Minister Gallant stated, speaking to Israeli troops on the Gaza border, I quote, I have released all restraints. You saw what we are fighting against. We are fighting human animals. This is the ISIS of Gaza. This is what we are fighting against. Gaza won't return to what it was before. There will be no Hamas. We will eliminate everything. If it doesn't take one day, it will take a week. It will take weeks or even months. We will reach all places, end of quote. On 12 October 2023, Mr. Isaac Herzog, President of Israel, stated, referring to Gaza, I quote, we are working, operating militarily according to rules of international law, unequivocally. It is an entire nation out there that is responsible. It is not true, this rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved. It is absolutely not true. They could have risen up. They could have fought against that evil regime which took over Gaza in a coup d'etat. But we are at war. We are at war. We are at war. We are defending our homes. We are protecting our homes. That's the truth. And when a nation protects its home, it fights. And we will fight until we break their backbone. End of quote.
Okay, she goes on. So the point is, don't let the Israelis spin this, and don't spin it for them by emphasizing the no immediate ceasefire. They're going to be found guilty at the end of this. I mean, a judge does not cite, and I just showed you a random sampling. I showed you 5 minutes. She went on for hours. I watched it. They're going to be found guilty.
She went on for hours like that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she's going to be found guilty.
Right. And at that point, it's tragic because what Israel is going to do is not going to be stopped by these means.
No.
The only comfort we can take, and it is small comfort, these people are suffering horrors that people in America can't even imagine. I mean, there are no Americans alive, really, who have experienced this level of horror, or you could say ever. I mean, the Civil War was the closest thing we ever experienced on American soil to what these people are going through. And I would argue this is far worse than the Civil War in their helplessness in the face of this overwhelming assault. And just not having anywhere to go, being penned in like animals that way. So it is small comfort and no comfort for those people. But it's the end of Israel as it has functioned in the world. Israel is never going to be able to function as a legitimate country again if it survives this at all. As we saw at the top, the situation is extremely unstable in that region. And if this erupts into World War III with Israel as a main target for the countries around it, it's hard to see how it would survive that kind of an assault, especially with most of the world being against it. That having been said, this is kind of interesting. You know, China, maybe we'll get into this on Wednesday. I didn't have time to really put this together. China is urging Iran to stop backing the Houthis. And, my read of that is China tends to like stability. They don't like this kind of very dangerous brinksmanship that could erupt into World War III. I think the Chinese vision of the world is slow and steady wins the race, and we're going to win slowly and steadily. There's no need for bloodshed and destruction.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that all makes a lot of sense. I want to highlight Itamar Ben-Gvir's statement, the Hague Schmague. So you see, he loves this ruling from the Times of Israel.
Once again, you're proven right. The only Jews that aren't funny.
Only Jews that aren't funny, exactly. Ben-Gvir slams ICJ as anti-Semitic, says Israel should ignore ruling on provisional measures. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir slams the International Court of Justice for issuing a series of provisional measures against Israel, calling the international body, quote, anti-Semitic. Big surprise. The decision of the anti-Semitic court in The Hague proves what was already known. This court does not seek justice, but rather the persecution of Jewish people. They were silent during the Holocaust. What? And today, didn't they not even form until after the Holocaust?
They didn't exist.
Yeah, they didn't exist until after the Holocaust.
About?
What the fuck are you talking about? And today they continue the hypocrisy and take it another step further, he says, later on in the piece.
Really, it's the successor to Nuremberg.
Exactly, right. It was post-Holocaust. Yeah.
Did try the Holocaust.
Yeah. Decisions that endanger the continued existence of the State of Israel must not be listened to, Ben-Gvir adds. We must continue defeating the enemy until complete victory. Now, that defiant statement would have been issued had they called for a ceasefire, which means in practice it wouldn't have been any different. Like I said, there's two elements of this. You have to pursue justice and liberation at the same time. And this trial, unfortunately, tragically, is not a vehicle for liberation, but it is a vehicle for justice. And justice will be done in large part because of this trial, and this first verdict in a series is one step in that direction. And so I just wanted to clear that up because a lot of people were very upset by it. And I heard a lot of people saying in the run-up to this, don't expect to call for a ceasefire. Expect some damning information and a lopsided vote, which both of those turned out to be true, 15-2.
Right. Yeah, it's tragic that that's the best you can do. But unfortunately, the only country that could truly pick up a phone and stop Israel is us. Right. America is the only institution that could stop this by just absolutely cutting off all further aid and weapons.
Yeah, and that's why we have to keep protesting and we have to keep confronting.
Keep going.
What's that? Sorry.
Even with that, those crazy fucks would probably try to keep fighting for as long as they could.
Of course. But that's why what you just said, that's why we still have to protest. We still have to confront politicians. Like, we don't give up on the liberation side. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm saying you have to put this in the other category and keep the pressure on. As we've been doing. It's all we can do. It's horrible that that's all we can do, but that's all we can do. All right. By the way, folks.
Well, I mean, heckling. We could go there.
And heckling. Well, yeah.
So
of course.
donate
that's part
to
of
our
protesting.
campaign.
Yeah. Well, what Jose Vega's doing. By the way, folks, Jimmy moved his schedule to Tuesday, Thursday this week. So Russ is on. You're co-hosting tomorrow, Tuesday, and then you'll be hosting Thursday. So we are back to our old schedule this week. Sorry. So we're on Wednesday night and then Friday morning this week. Yeah, so that's the way that's going to go. Evan Gerhardt found y'all on Jimmy Dore first live stream. Go Chiefs. Congratulations, Evan, and thanks for finding us.
Thank you, Evan.
Scott Johnson says, would totally go to a show in New York City with Keaton and Russell. Do it. Yeah, we should put something together for sure.
We should.
Definitely. Let's see. We got a Rumble rant from RU Poster. Thanks for the $10. The day after the UN's ICJ presented its findings, the U.S. and the UK cut off all our funding for the UN's 17,000 humanitarian employees where this genocide is, unfolding. Yeah, absolutely. That's what we mentioned in that segment. UNRWA. Somebody said in the chat they wrote a piece about that on Substack. I'd love to read that. So, yeah, send it over to us. Email dudissidents@gmail.com. The Vulture Vanity Show. Check out the angry gay Pope. He makes their lives miserable entertaining. Thank you for that. Okay, Crispy Z, imagine Haley names Michelle as VP and she accepts because Trump bad and let's unite the country. Yeah, thus whoever loses, they win. Don't got to worry about Kamala. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's an interesting thought. I understand where you're going. Riffsife, who's paying you to distract us with war news? Don't you know Will Smith's sexuality is in question? Thank you, Riffsife. Angry Gay Pope goes after Scientologists. Okay.
Oh, does he?
Interesting. Kenman, thanks for the 99 cents. 118, Debbie, thanks for the $2. Appreciate that. Raphius Elite have agreed on Nikki. Biden would lose to anyone, so ensure Biden is the D candidate and jail Trump. Yeah, they're not going to be able to push Nikki Haley over the finish line. She just said in an interview she's going to have to place better in South Carolina than in New Hampshire in order to stay in, which she's not going to.
She's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
No. I mean, South Carolina will be her Waterloo, I would think.
That's it. Yeah, she's out after South Carolina. And that's
like, how do you justify continuing after that?
No, she said she can't stay in South Carolina unless she outperforms her New Hampshire numbers, which she's not going to, because you're not going to have the amount of independents voting. You're not going to have the Democrat crossovers. Right. I mean, this was not so much the case at the first Haley event I went to. At the second Haley event I went to, almost everyone I talked to was a Democrat or a non-affiliated. Like almost every single person there.
Right.
In South Carolina, you don't have that same dynamic. They're all Republicans.
You actually need to win with Republicans.
Right. You actually have to get Republican votes. Things will get worse, Rise, this year. Thank you, Kenman. And thank you, Landrew, for the generous donation. Vote no on genocide, Joe. Free Palestine. Thank you very much, Landrew. Yes, I agree with both of those things. And thank you very much. That's very kind of you. We appreciate that. Oh, so much. Okay, folks, we're going on to segment number 2. Don't worry, they're not all as long as that one, so we should finish at a normal time tonight. But
I could have used a little more cowbell.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, you should get a double cowbell now.
Yeah, it should get a double cowbell for that. There we go. That's beautiful. All right, let's go to some protest action. You may have seen this video, which surfaced on Twitter. This is Nancy Pelosi at a fundraising event being protested by a ceasefire activist.
Nancy Pelosi, you are complicit in the Israeli crime of genocide. I'm an Iraqi refugee, and I watched your government you represent kill 1 million of my people. You killed 70,000 Afghans, and now over 30,000 Palestinians have died due to your complicity. We demand an end to the Zionist occupation of Palestine. We demand an end to the 17-year-long brutal siege of Gaza to be lifted. We demand an end. End the occupation now. End the occupation now. End the occupation now. End the occupation now.
Those nice liberals.
End the occupation now.
In the room. Same crowd you see at the symphony.
Now.
Yep.
Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
Look at all those nice pro-democracy, anti-racists in the audience applauding Nancy Pelosi while an Iraqi refugee gets dragged out of the room for voicing her concerns to one of the top-ranking Democrats in the country. See, Marianne, this is how I knew you were going to finish in single digits before your campaign started. Because the voters in the Democratic Party, they're not all as rich as this, but they all want to be these people. Like the mainstream Democratic primary voters, they aspire to be in this room. And this is how people in this room act when confronted with someone who actually demands real justice. They ignore them, they turn their back, and they applaud the queen bee. They applaud the mother, Mama Bear. Hey, Mama Bear, what do you know? That's how you that's the response you actually get from these people.
Yeah, I know you don't like animal comparisons, but basically, Democrats are like good dogs.
Right. Yeah.
That's what they want to be pat on the head.
Right.
And with the promise that as long as they adopt elite opinions, elite status will follow. And even if they don't have financial capital, holding those opinions gives them cultural capital.
Exactly. Now, Nancy Pelosi was asked on CNN today about protesters like that, because to her, I guess that woman, even though she said she was an Iraqi refugee, sounded like a Putin puppet to Nancy Pelosi. Let's hear her.
My house all the time. So I have a feeling for what feelings they have. But we have to think about what we're doing. And what we have to do is try to stop the suffering in Gaza. This is women and children, people who don't have a place to go. So let's address that. But for them to call for a ceasefire is Mr. Putin's message.
Oh.
Mr. Putin's message. Make no mistake, this is directly connected to what he would like to see. Same thing with Ukraine. It's about Putin's message. I think some of these protesters are spontaneous and organic and sincere. Some, I think, are connected to Russia. And I say that having looked at this for a long time now, as you know.
You think some of these protests are Russian plants?
I don't think they're plants. I think some financing should be investigated. And I want to ask the FBI to investigate that. But
you want to ask the FBI to investigate?
Well, this is why we have to keep Democrats in power, to protect democracy and freedom.
Exactly.
So that we can keep in power people who want the FBI to investigate political protesters on the premise that they're Russian plants.
Based on absolutely zero evidence whatsoever.
Based on nothing, from a criminal inside stock trader who does it with impunity and shuts down any attempt to regulate stock trading by Congress and the Senate.
As her district is plagued with drug addiction, homelessness, desperation, she's enriched herself to $150 million net worth based on insider stock trading. Yeah, probably more than that by now. But no, she wants to investigate the funding of the Free Palestine protesters. She doesn't want her funding investigated. She doesn't want her stock trades investigated. She wants to investigate you if you support a ceasefire. So that's just obviously just an insane comment. It's the only card they have to play, Putin, right? But what she says here next is, in a way, even worse. In a way not, but in a way even worse. Let's let this play a little bit more.
apart from that, let's just say it's all spontaneous and sincere. Let's say it's all spontaneous and sincere. Young people care about the right to choose. They care about LGBTQ issues. They care about preserving the planet. They care about gun violence prevention. That's what they tell us. They care about our democracy and the freedoms that are contained in some of what I said. So they're going to have to make a decision, staying home to enable or to agonize, organize, not agonize, but organize and get out there and get the job. I have every confidence that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be president and vice president of the United States.
So what you're saying
there
is...
A trans with a Schmendrick swinging it in a girl's bathroom.
What she's saying there is, assuming these protests are spontaneous, I'm confident that young people will sell out the people of Gaza in the end. I'm confident they'll sell them out at the end because young people are pro-choice, young people are pro-LGBT, young people are pro-gun control, young people want to end climate change, and so they will suck up our genocide and vote for us anyway. I trust that they will fold in the end. And why wouldn't she think that? They usually do. So the question is, to everybody in the chat and to all of the friends of everybody in the chat, are you going to prove her right or are you going to make an asshole out of her? Ultimately, it falls to us. It falls to the people and it falls to the voters to make an asshole out of her in November and say no. Just as that wonderful young girl said in the interview on Face the Nation that we played, young woman, pardon me, because she's a voter, obviously. So she said, yeah, I'm for reproductive rights, but it'd be hypocritical for me to make that my single issue when we are forcing moms to have C-sections without anesthesia in Gaza because of the horrors that we are helping impose upon them. And so ultimately it falls to us. What she just said there is, yeah, they might be upset about this genocide that we are helping, but they'll fold in the end because they want rights for themselves. Ultimately, they're going to protect their own rights, even if it means rubber stamping a Holocaust. That's what she's saying you're going to do. So it's up to you guys, up to everybody to prove her wrong. Otherwise, shame on us at the end of the day.
I think that Gen Z is something very different from most of what you've seen with the Democratic Party post-Clinton. You saw rumblings of this even in 2016 when they would poll like the youngest cohorts, and they would say they didn't identify with the Democratic Party. They didn't trust the Democratic Party. You're starting to see that block become larger, a much larger block of the over 18s. And as I wrote in my first article about this, the Frankenstein article, I think this has created a kind of cognitive dissonance for Gen Z, seeing their elders who told them how much they cared about brown people and equal rights and decolonization, seeing them all line up behind what is clearly a settler colonial state committing a genocide in real time is having the effect that growing up to realize that large parts of the country were segregated and we were involved in a war in Vietnam that was slaughtering peasant farmers had on the boomers because they were raised to believe that America was better than that. Their parents told them about how we went and overthrew the Nazis and how their racism, how bad it was. And then they grew up and realized they live in an apartheid country. And that was a big part of what turned them against the establishment. We're seeing that happening with Gen Z. They're seeing what the real face of their elders are, and they're turning, and God bless them. I don't think they're going to cave.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. And that's exactly right. It's exactly right. How can young people look at Gen Xers, boomers, and say, wait a minute, I thought you guys told us that racism was wrong. I thought you guys told us that colonialism was wrong, domination.
We were past all that.
Was wrong. I thought we were past all that. I thought you taught us better than that. Turns out you don't believe any of that.
Right.
You just tell us you do. Because you want to put a smiley face on the economic order that you enjoy. That's basically why you told us all that. But when the rubber hits the road, you don't actually mean it. And I think they are waking up to that. And I think you're right. I think they're not going to cave. Certainly the Arab and Muslim voters are not going to cave. Well, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Janice Anderson, thanks for the $4.99. Appreciate it. Didn't use ceasefire, but did order Israel to stop killing Palestinians. Ceasefire implies there are two military groups. It's military against civilians. Yes, good point. Good point. Kenman, thanks for the $2.79. Why don't Russell and Keaton like Bree bad faith? All right, we're not going to do that today. We're not going to. We're not doing Brianna today. There was one guy I remember Mike Francesa when he was on WFAN, doing the sports talk. Everybody always had strong opinions about A-Rod, and so he'd be trying to cover a story, and a caller would call and ask about A-Rod. I said, "We're not doing A-Rod today. We're not doing A-Rod today. We're not doing that today. Sorry." But thank you for that.
You can go back in the archives. I've explained it quite thoroughly, and it's not as simple as that.
Yeah,
she's taken a great position on Palestine. She's taken a great position on voting. It's you know what it is with Brianna? It's like you're eating a great meal and then there's a toenail in it. So, you're like, yeah, look at her doing this, look at her doing this. Oh, she compared the difference between sexes to construction paper. Oh, she called homeschooling child abuse. So it's just like every time you want to just embrace her, she says something so fundamentally fucking stupid that you have to reevaluate your entire sense of her. So that's as much as we're going to do it.
There you go. Yeah, well, that was $2.79 worth, I think. I think we gave you your money's worth.
So. Yep.
Paul McCallum, thanks for the 10 pounds. Is it in my head we could be close to nuclear war? Americans are moving nuclear weapons to Britain again, and there's no real movement to stop this like in the 80s. Yeah.
People I mean, when Gen X was growing up and when the boomers were growing up, it was like Cold War I and Cold War II. Like you had that 50s bomb shelter thing. And then with détente, it kind of quieted down for a while in the 70s. There wasn't as much fear of nuclear war. And then Reagan came in and gets caught on a hot mic saying, the Soviet Union is canceled. It scared the living shit out of everyone. And now we know it was part of a strategy that the CIA had actually given Reagan a report that if he started an arms race with the Russians, it would drive them into bankruptcy, that they wouldn't be able to keep up with it. And obviously that turned out to be correct. But yeah, like for Gen X, when we were growing up, it was like growing up in the 50s. Like we were constantly terrified that there was going to be a nuclear war. There were constantly movies like War Games and The Day After that were, these gaming out a nuclear war scenario. I think it's been so long because now it's a much more complex threat. It's very easy when you got Soviet Union, United States, nuclear weapons. Now you got these people have nukes, these people have nukes, these people have nukes. You're unlikely to have a nuclear war in the way that we might have then. Now, if you have a nuclear war, it's because someone in Pakistan launches a nuke. And that's just, it's a harder threat for people to wrap their heads around, I think.
Yeah, indeed.
Even though it's much more likely to happen now.
Oh, of course.
Because you were dealing with two rational actors.
Right. P. Walker, thanks for the $5. I'm thinking the evidence of UNRWA corruption allegedly by Israel's on the shelf next to the beheaded babies. Yeah, indeed. But like I said, they honor their request and then they look into it. They do it backwards. Doesn't matter that 2 million people are dependent on this aid. J.A. Savage, BB, are we the baddies? Yes, we are the baddies. Indeed. Old hag Pelosi blaming Russia for millions of people calling for ceasefire wants the FBI to investigate. Indeed. Kerry Scott, grateful you're going to play Fall in Love by Steve Wick. Yes, I told you we're going to play that during the Rumble Q&A, so stay tuned and switch over afterwards. We are going to play your track that I am sampled in. I know I promised that. I did not forget. Thank you, Kerry. Okay. Let's go to segment number 3 here. Here's another protest action. New York Post, Senator John Fetterman waves Israeli flag from his roof after pro-Hamas protesters from the New York Post gather outside his Pennsylvania home. I didn't even catch that the first time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even featured that because it's just such chicken shit. But what caught me about this is look at this building here. Look at this building. This is apparently this guy's home. I mean, this looks like an abandoned factory. He lives here? He actually has a residence there? I thought this was maybe his office, something like that. No, apparently John Fetterman lives here, but here he is trolling the protesters with an Israeli flag from the rooftop of his home, I guess. If this is his home, I'm more worried for his mental health than I was previous. That's the home of a United States Senator? It looks like a boarded up supermarket. So there he is. Rubbing it in their face, and here they are.
All right, so as it pans across, all right, so that looks to me like it's some kind of industrial conversion they're doing there.
Yeah, well, you see there's like some trailers in the background, some trucks.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to take some like abandoned industrial infrastructure and make it cool.
Yeah, but man, I mean, those are some pretty humble digs there. It's his house. Look, he lives in that building. Look at that building. Insane. See, look, you could see the little exhibit set up underneath.
Maybe that's where the Jew tunnels go.
Yeah, that's where the tunnels go. Exactly. Under Fetterman's house there.
That's why he's such an ardent supporter.
In Pennsylvania, And look, the right-wingers love John Fetterman now. They fell in love with this guy. They went from mocking this guy mercilessly in the, election against Frank Oz. On January 26th, leftist pro-Palestine protesters gathered outside the Braddock, Pennsylvania home of Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat. He responded by going on his roof and waving the Israeli flag, infuriating the mob. Fetterman 2.0, that's what they're calling him now. Fetterman 2.0 spent last night waving an Israeli flag at pro-Palestine protesters outside.
That's what he was yelling up there, right?
Yeah, I should have said that. You should have. If he really wanted to piss them off, he should have waved the stars and stripes. Oh, yeah, no, he's their new hero. Here's our friend Nick Cruz. The Bernie Sanders left enthusiastically endorsing John Fetterman while ignoring all the warnings from black leftists and Palestinians about him was the final nail in the coffin for the fraudulent Bernie movement. And he brought a receipt here. Beware of John Fetterman. Look at how young Nick was back then. Look how this job ages us. See? Look, Max looks really young, too.
As he says, he was a sweet summer child.
Exactly. This is only a year and a half ago. Look at how young Max Blumenthal looks, too. This really does put the years on our faces. Really does. These are sacrifices we make.
Politics fucks you up, man. I'm telling you, I went gray as soon as we started doing this full time.
Yeah, me too. I'm getting the gray sideburns here.
If you look at my fucking Fairy Tale of New York video, I was 2019.
Yep.
Not that long ago.
Nope. Yeah. Not that long ago. RBN tried to warn the left about John Fetterman, but the deeply unserious PMC class didn't want to listen. Instead, they misled the left by repeating Fetterman campaign talking points while ignoring the red flags. Yeah, no love left for John Fetterman since this conflict broke out. He has now disavowed the progressive label, and there he is, just trolling him.
He's going to be the next. He's going to go independent. Watch.
Yeah, right. Exactly. A Dem exit could be in his future.
He's the next, what's her fucking name? Cinema. He's the next Cinema.
Yep, the next Kristen Cinema. Well, don't say we didn't warn you.
Yep. Yeah, I almost pulled video from this, but if some of you remember, an NBC reporter had the temerity to ask questions about whether he was cognitively up to the job. And boy, Majority Report was all over that. Emma Vigeland was, shaming her for questioning someone's cognition. And, it's discriminatory and it's ableist.
What did John Idarola say?
I've got news for you. There are people who can't see. Okay, so is that really the same thing, moron? Is that really the same thing? Unbelievable.
Yeah, just absolutely insane. But don't say we didn't warn you about John Fetterman. For the UK trip, because 67, don't spend it all on candy and comic books. Thank you for the $10. Appreciate it.
Do they still make Judge Dredd? Maybe I'll pick up a copy of Judge Dredd with that. That's a British comic, Keaton.
Yes.
I will be going on the 19th, and I'll be there for a week. We're trying to arrange something to get together with Stella for an interview. Obviously, it's a very busy time for her, so we're trying to figure it out.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. But Russell will be going. The trip is booked. So that is so far the winner of our poll. We will be sending Russell out to London third week of February to cover both days worth of protests outside the all-important hearing.
And it looks to me like they're doing it overnight. So I booked a place that's walking distance from the court. So I might be going over there at like 2 a.m. to cover what's going on there.
Alrighty. Let's go to segment number 4. So I mentioned, folks, in the wake of the ICJ verdict, I noticed some increased pressure being put on the politicians from the talking heads on the Sunday shows this week. We are going to be covering AOC's Meet the Press appearance on tomorrow's Patreon show. But we haven't done a Kamala segment in a while, so we thought, why don't we see how Kamala...
I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from. I just can't control myself sometimes.
Why don't we see how Kamala is handling the increased pressure to perhaps condition aid to Israel, as Katie Couric asks her in this exchange.
More to protect. Must do more to protect innocent civilians. We've been very clear, humanitarian aid must flow. From day one, I will tell you, one of my areas of priority included, let's think about the day after, because we must stay focused on an eventual two-state solution.
Well, having said that, I want to tell you something.
What an insight. What a unique insight. You know, I said, as this was happening, I said, you know, Joe, we really need to think about the day after. It's like, oh, yeah, you know, God, son of a bitch. You're right. Son of a bitch.
That's why I picked you. You're the smart one.
We need to think about what happens the day after. You know, she's right. She's right. She has a point.
Which I'm sure you're well aware of.
You're the first
that
black female vice president who's articulate and clean.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Then they had to say, no, not again. Not again.
Solution.
Well, having said that, I want to tell you something which I'm sure you're well aware of, that Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, recently said. He rejected U.S. calls to scale back Israel's military action in the Gaza Strip or to support a Palestinian state after the war. He even said that Israel, quote, must have security control over the entire territory west of the Jordan River, which includes Gaza. So given those positions, how can you possibly come together? How can the U.S. and Israel come together to solve this? And should aid to Israel be conditional?
So I'll start with the principles that we are applying to this discussion, which we've been very clear with the Israeli government about. One, as it relates to the day after, there should be no reoccupation of Gaza. There should be no changing of the territorial boundaries of Gaza. That the Palestinians are entitled to, in equal measure with Israelis, security and prosperity.
Doesn't sound like Bibi Netanyahu agrees with that.
We're the United States of America. I'm telling you our position.
Right, but it doesn't matter what your position is if you let Netanyahu push her, but you know, have his way with you. Good on her for asking that follow-up. Like, that's more than I would expect from Katie Couric.
If only we could do something to rein Israel in.
Right.
It's so unfortunate that we're not able to make our position a reality.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like Bibi Netanyahu agrees with that.
We're the United States of America. I'm telling you our position. And we take our role in this discussion very seriously. There may be disagreements. That doesn't mean we're going to change our mind about the principles that are important to be applied to this process in terms of what a day after should look like. And those principles remain consistent. We believe very strongly, I believe very strongly, Palestinians are entitled to dignity and self-determination. We believe there must be a two-state solution for the sake of the stability in the region. We believe very strongly, as a first principle, Israel must be secure, that Hamas must not be in a position to commit terrorist acts against innocent people or the people of Israel in particular.
So should aid, Madam Vice President, be conditional? If the Prime Minister of Israel is stating this, should that aid not come if there's not that kind of flexibility that you're seeking?
We are right now in a position of negotiating with Congress to follow through on a commitment we made for aid. And we are taking it one day at a time in terms of what is happening in the region and how we are addressing the issue. But that's where we are right now.
So I don't feel like you really answered my question.
I think I did.
Well, do you think it should be conditional?
I think I did. Your aides didn't tell you. Woo! Woo! Your aides didn't tell you, hey, you know, given the seriousness of the subject matter, maybe try not to have a fit of uncontrollable laughter in the context of this conversation. Maybe try and rein that in this time. But man, you could bet if there's an interview with Kamala Harris, you are going to get an outburst like that. What a whack job. What an absolute psycho. You're right. She's a psycho. Who the fuck? Who laughs like? Hey, I think I did. Listen one more time.
In the region, and how we are addressing the issue. But that's where we are right now.
So I don't feel like you really answered my question.
I think I did.
Well, do you think it should be conditional? I know you're caring.
This is brutal. You can get a Charlie horse watching her. Like, you could really fuck yourself up watching her. Like, you really tighten your. It's impossible to relax and watch her talk.
All right, man. Let's call it for what it is, man. She fucked her way to the top. Like there was no reason that hot young Kamala Harris was dating 60-year-old married Willie Brown.
Willie Brown, yeah.
Other than to advance her career. Can we just call it for what it is? Can we be honest about this? So you got to be a certain kind of person to live your life like that. You don't have to be a psychopath, but it helps. I would say the way that she has this very cringe-inducing behavior is characteristic of psychopaths, where they're faking human behavior because they don't quite understand it. That has been my theory about her ever since I started seeing these videos of her just laughing in these weird, inappropriate places. I mean, forget about the kind of social intelligence that a politician should have. This is not the social intelligence a 6-year-old should have.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely insane. And the point that Couric is making is very obvious. Like, she's not asking you your position. She knows what you're going to say your position is. Her line of questioning is, what do you do when Benjamin Netanyahu tells you to shove your position up your ass? Are there consequences for that, or are there not consequences for that? Right? That's what she's trying to get out of you.
That's not our position.
And eventually, after the laugh breakdown, she does get that out of her. Here it is.
Right now.
Not right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I stepped on it. I apologize.
Time in terms of what is happening in the region and how we are addressing the issue. But that's where we are right now.
So I don't feel like you really answered my question.
I think I did.
Well, do you think it should be conditional? I know you're carrying out.
That's not our position right now.
Not right now.
That's not our position right now. So after all that word salad, all that filibustering, whoa, we believe there needs to be a two-state solution on the day after and that Israel should not occupy Gaza, even though they're saying that's their plan. They say it over and over and over again, that's their plan. Couric asks, well, given that's their plan, and given that their plan is in defiance of the position of the United States, should you then not condition aid to them upon them changing whatever they say their plan is? Well, no, we're not going there. Okay, so then all of that word salad was for nothing. None of it meant anything. That was the point of the question.
Course.
Yeah.
Well, especially because we could end it tomorrow.
Right.
It's not like we're talking about negotiations with China, where we have extremely limited and questionable leverage over what the Chinese government does. We have absolute leverage over what Israel does. We cut them off. Where do they go? Who's gonna back their colonial genocide project? Who are they going to find? Who's going to support this? So yeah, I mean, although I will say, okay, style points, yeah, they definitely worked on her. She's not as bad. Like, that's an improvement over like 2020 Kamala.
Yeah, just an immediate laugh breakdown could have happened.
Right. Yeah. She didn't laugh uncomfortably until later. And if you notice, she stopped herself pretty quickly. Like they definitely hooked her up to some electrodes and shocked her every time she laughed.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. Don't laugh when talking about the genocide. Don't laugh. I
forgot to look at my crib notes.
Yeah, right. Make sure you don't laugh. Oh, boy. Jay Savage, thank you for the $4.99. Hannah Arendt predicted that if Israel constituted itself as a Jewish state within 2 to 3 generations, it would be indistinguishable from Nazism. Well, she was not wrong, my friend. Thank you very much for that. Folks, if you would like to support our program, you can do so by going to patreon.com/do-dissidents and joining our member list. You can go to patreon.com/do-dissidents. You can also go to do-dissidents.substack.com and become a paid subscriber, or you can join our locals, do-dissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble, which right now we have, according to Jake's last update, 1,363 viewers over on Rumble. You can hit that join button right underneath the screen and become a Locals member. Paid members across Substack, Patreon, and Locals get call-in access to our weekly post-show Q&As, which are over on Rumble. You also get access to 2 member-exclusive shows per month. We are doing our second and final patron show of January tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern. That'll be 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. You also get call-in access to those patron shows. And you get your name up in lights here. And by the way, folks, I think Jake's internet is a little choppy. That's why it's scrolling a little bit weird. But that's okay. If you want your name in the end titles of our upcoming documentary on the great Jose Vega entitled Ruckus, which will be premiering here 1 week from tonight, join our Patreon, Substack, or Locals list, and you'll get a spot in the end credits of that film. We're really excited to premiere that at 7 p.m. Jose will be here for a talk back afterwards, as well as a big announcement that he is going to be making the day before on the Jimmy Dore Show. So we have a full week. We're very excited to launch that film. I would show you guys a clip of it, but I forgot to link the stock music library to our YouTube channel. I have to do that because we would get a copyright claim if we did it now. So I have to link that up before we can play a teaser. So I'll do that by Wednesday. I'll play a little teaser for you guys on Wednesday. But yeah, you could sign up Locals, Patreon, or Substack. It helps tremendously, really helps keep the show going, helps censor-proof the operation, and helps us add our 4th weekly stream, which we are going to be doing.
That's coming soon.
After February 9th, which is when Russ's stint at the Jimmy Show, at least the first leg of it, will wrap up. The Amazing Blumpkin very quickly became a huge fan. Thank you. Travis Kelce is railing that shit. That's why the Chiefs hate. Yeah, that's probably it. Fellas, they do make blow-up dolls. Get one for the basement. Yeah, I like your Big Lebowski emoji. Yeah, that might have something to do with it. But I mean, well, she's his girlfriend. I mean, whatever. She goes to the games. She likes watching the games. She celebrates when they score a touchdown. Like that triggers you. Like, get a fucking life.
Like,
man.
why?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
What the hell's the problem? What's the problem? I don't understand it. Kenman, thanks for the $6.99. I like your style, Russ, but do you need to use so many cuss words? Wow, more Big Lebowski references tonight. That's Sam Elliott. I like it, dude, but you got to use so many cuss words. I like your style, dude, but do you got to use so many cuss words?
You know, that's like I talked to somebody who was she was a Broadway actress in musicals. And those are a very different kind of theater person. Like if you're going to find someone who's like a Christian conservative who does theater, they're like musical theater people. You never see that from straight actors, almost never. So she was one of those, and she said she liked The Sopranos except for the cursing.
Right.
And I said, well, I mean, that is how people like that talk.
Yeah,
for
right,
real.
yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, I grew up with people not quite like that, not doing that, but I grew up in that Italian American culture, and that's exactly how they talk. So why would you take that out?
Right, of course. That's par for the course.
So so what I'm saying is, if you took that out, it wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be authentic on the show.
That's right. That's our brand. Turtle Butler, thanks for the $10. Gentiles exposing the crime of Zionism are roundly dismissed, so people like you, the Gray Zone, and Norm Finkelstein are bringing the message people need to hear. Well, that's one of the reasons why we do it. Thank you. Excuse me. Jewel in the Machine, R.E. the ICJ, Ali Abunima, I hope I said that name right, Abunima, made the point that ceasefire is a term for two states at war, which is not what's happening to Gaza, so urged not to get too hung up that they didn't specifically use that term. Yeah, Janice made that point earlier. Indeed. I thought, and look, I'm not a lawyer. I didn't know that this was going to be the rationale. It might not have been. I don't have access to the inner workings of the minds of the judges. But I assumed that since this was the preliminary investigative phase, that they would not render a verdict like that, because to do that would be to essentially find Israel guilty, which they weren't prepared to do technically at this point. But like I said, if you listen to what they said in the hours running up to when they read their final ruling, it's pretty obvious they're going to be found as having committed genocide in Gaza. It's pretty obvious to me. I would be shocked.
I mean, don't be too proud of the work we're doing here, because I talked to Keaton the other day. I said, look what they did to Bud Light, and look how that changed the commercials you see on TV. Like, nobody wants to be the next Bud Light. So we don't need to boycott every company that does business with Israel. We just have to destroy the stock price of one or two to get the message out to the others, to get all the others in line. And so I suggested Pizza Hut, but he likes the stuffed crust pizza.
Yeah, I think we should, if we're going to do that, if we're going to really try to boycott a company, maybe Puma or Sabra Hummus, something like that.
I think people are already boycotting Sabra.
Okay, so
I've dropped a couple of videos on TikTok of like, they can't give that shit away at my supermarket in Harlem.
I mean, Puma's a totally replaceable brand. You got Adidas, you got Nike, you got all these other things.
Yeah, but it's not as present. Not as many people use Puma as use Pizza Hut. We got to pick something very visible like Bud Light, like Target, something that's that visible.
I think Pizza Hut can be reformed from within. I think Pizza Hut. I think we can change Pizza Hut. I think we could force Pizza Hut to change.
All right,
I don't think we have to destroy it. I think that's extreme. I think the stuffed crust pizza is a nice novelty with the garlic butter spray. You don't get the garlic butter spray too many other places. And the baked chicken wings. That's a nice touch of baked chicken wing.
Right.
Usually a chicken wing is fried, it's filling, it's greasy. You feel like you just ate a Mack truck after you have a few chicken wings. The baked chicken wings are nice because they're flavorful, they're light, they got this nice smoky flavor. I don't want to part ways with that. I think we can change them. I think we can reform them.
All right. So this is how we lost the squad right here. They offered them some Pizza Hut, unlimited supply, and that's it. No, I mean, this is a microcosm of how people sell out.
Yeah,
and
right.
Keaton goes cheap. Baked chicken wings. That's it. You lost them.
Co-opted for baked chicken wings. J.A. Savage.
Very sad.
Sad. West's right to champion human rights died in Gaza, of course. Thank you very much for that. Gail Gouveia, thanks for the $10. Appreciate that. Very nice of you. BB's BFFs, Biden and Trump. Indeed. Derek P. Fetterman, a hipster at heart. Hipsters dress a little sharper than that. But
as a rule.
As a rule. Okay, let's go to segment number 5. Okay, folks, I know this show has been a little bit heavy so far, talking about the Israeli crimes in Gaza. So on a lighter note, Russell has a story about the first nitrogen gas execution that took place on American soil this week.
Let's start on a C, a bouncy C.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Oh, wrong one.
Yeah, where is it?
Right next to it. Here it is. Yep, there it is.
Yeah. See, it looks almost the same, that
because
picture.
it's a guy in side profile view.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So this was rather horrific. Alabama carries out first known execution with nitrogen gas in the U.S. Now the state's AG expects more states to follow. They're trailblazers over there in Alabama. Alabama inmate Kenneth Smith was put to death Thursday night by nitrogen hypoxia, marking the nation's first known execution using that method. Now Alabama's Attorney General wants to help other states interested in using the new form of capital punishment. I mean, this is better than the original proposition. They wanted to bring back crucifixion, but they felt some of the religious people wouldn't like it. Smith, 58, was sentenced to death for his role in a 1988 murder for hire and had previously survived a failed attempt to execute him by lethal injection in 2022. just to fill that out because the section of the article I have doesn't. They couldn't find the vein. So this guy was all strapped to the gurney and had them poking around in his arms to execute him, and they couldn't find it, and they called it off. So this is the second time they brought him in to execute him. His attorneys fought the execution until the end, ultimately losing a final appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday evening. Smith's legal team, alongside experts and advocates from the U.S. to the United Nations, had voiced concern that nitrogen hypoxia could lead to excessive pain or even torture. Now you think. Alabama is one of only 3 states, Oklahoma and Mississippi being the others, to have approved the method, which is designed to replace oxygen in the body with a high concentration of nitrogen causing death. So far, Alabama is the only state to have carried it out or even outlined a protocol on how to do it. The Attorney General had a message for colleagues across the country who were monitoring developments in the nation's first execution using nitrogen hypoxia. Alabama's done it. Now so can you, Steve Marshall said, and we stand ready to assist you in implementing this method in your states. Coming soon to a state near you, kids.
Yeah, really anxious to spread the word on this.
Is really
a pressing need for this, for torturing inmates to death.
Yep, he's proselytizing his neighboring states. So here's a little helpful graphic from the U.S. Sun, so you can see the process here. 1, death row inmate strapped to gurney. 2, and don't try this at home. 2, respirator face mask placed over nose and mouth. 3, breathable air replaced with nitrogen. 4, inmate loses consciousness. 5, death from lack of oxygen within 22 minutes. It's a little unclear how they came up with that number, given that they never did this before. The execution process began at 7:53 Central Time, and Smith was pronounced dead at 8:25, according to Alabama Department of Corrections officials. Nitrogen flowed for about 15 minutes during the procedure, State Corrections Commissioner John Hamm said in a news conference. Smith, who was on a gurney, appeared conscious for, quote, several minutes into the execution and shook and writhed for about 2 minutes after that, media witnesses said in a joint report. That was followed by several minutes of deep breathing before his breath began slowing until it was no longer perceptible for media witnesses, the witnesses said. When asked at the news conference about Smith shaking at the beginning of the execution, Hamm said Smith appeared to be holding his breath for as long as he could and may have also struggled against his restraints. Quote, there was some involuntary movement and some agonal breathing. So that was all expected and is in the side effects that we've seen and researched on nitrogen hypoxia, Hamm said. So nothing was out of the ordinary of what we were expecting. Unquote. Agonal breathing is an irregular gasping breath pattern that can happen when someone is near death. Smith's spiritual advisor, the Reverend Jeff Hood, who'd previously expressed concern that the method could be inhumane, witnessed the execution and described it in more graphic terms, saying it was, quote, the most horrible thing I've ever seen. Smith, wearing a tight-fitting mask that covered his entire face, convulsed when the gas was turned on, popped up on the gurney repeatedly, and gasped, heaved, and spat, Hood said. It was absolutely horrific, he said. Smith made a lengthy statement in front of the witnesses before the execution started, according to the pool reporters. Quote, tonight, Alabama caused humanity to take a step backward, Smith said in part, according to the reporters. I'm leaving with love, peace, and light. Thank you for supporting me. Love all of you. Smith made a I love you sign in sign language with one of his hands that was facing the room where his family was witnessing, the journalist joint report said. Elizabeth Sennett's sons, she's the woman who was murdered, told CNN earlier Thursday that they felt it was time for Smith's sentence to be carried out, adding they believed their mother had been overlooked due to the focus on the execution method. The family has forgiven everyone involved in the killing, including Smith, Michael Sennett said at a news conference Thursday night. Quote, his debt was paid tonight, the Sun said. All right, so just to fill out some of the things I cut for brevity. The sons were in their 20s when the mother was murdered. She was the wife of a pastor who, classic true crime plot, hired them to kill her for the insurance money. He was having an affair. So the family has said, because of their Christian beliefs, they forgive him and everyone involved, but they still wanted to see the execution carried forward. So I wanted to include something from the victims, because a lot of times people will say, if you're sympathetic to the cause of abolishing the death penalty, that you're ignoring the victims. And I don't in any way ignore the victims or their pain or their desire for resolution or closure. I personally believe you cannot even get to talking about whether the state has the right to take a life until you create a perfect justice system that doesn't make mistakes. So in other words, I don't believe in the death penalty because that's not possible. As long as there is the possibility of an innocent person being executed, you can't even get to the conversation about the morality of the death penalty. And also keep in mind, they're using an experimental method here, largely because countries in Europe have started to refuse to sell the chemicals that they need for the chemical injection that had become the preferred method over the last several decades. That's why at first they tried to do it with home-brewed versions, and you'd have these horrific incidents where one man, it took 45 minutes before he died. So now they're looking for other ways that will not be defined as cruel and unusual punishment. So that's why they're experimenting now with methods like this.
Yeah, and this is more sophisticated and more humane and more evolved than just shooting someone.
I don't think I'd rather be shot.
Yeah, of course. How? Like it doesn't make any sense. You shoot someone in the back of the, you shoot an inmate, you line them up in a firing squad. That's it. They're dead instantly. Right. They don't even feel it. They don't even know what happens. This is more humane than that. No, it's absolutely sick. And yeah, killing someone in jail is an escalation that can't be undone. Exactly. I'm against the death penalty too for that reason, right? You lock someone up based on, faulty evidence or something they didn't do. There will never be true reconciliation for that person, since everybody only gets one life. And so there's no way to give them the years back that they spent in a cage wrongfully, but at least you can let them go. At least you can try and do right by it. Once you execute them, there's no way of doing that. So yeah, I've always been against the death penalty for pretty much exactly that reason. But beyond that, this is just torture. It's just depraved. It's just sick. And this is an empire in decline. This is just the kind of depravity, the kind of barbarism that is characteristic of a collapsing social order, right? I mean, we don't have anything else to do. We don't have any other ideas about how to make our society better than to come up with new ways to execute inmates. This one by replacing the oxygen in their blood with nitrogen in their blood. That's an idea sprung. Hey, I got an idea. Not maybe we should try and, build housing for homeless people. Maybe we should not try to, expand healthcare for people or jobs programs. No, let's figure out a new way to execute inmates, to prove to everyone else outside of the jail that you better stay in line, because if you cross our state, we will torture you to death. It's just depraved. It's sick. And it is characteristic of a society that has just given up on making things better. So now we're just going to enforce existing orders by making penalties for stepping outside of them increasingly medieval, right? I mean, this is like, if they had the technology to do this in medieval times, they would.
Well, and you're not going to get it from this court. In fact, this court turned down the final appeal. This is irreconcilable with the constitutional prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. There is no way that this is that. I think the death penalty generally fits the definition of cruel and unusual punishment.
Yes.
But particularly when you're talking about experimental methods. You want to talk about painless. They should just be doing the electric chair if you're going to go back to this.
Of course.
But of course, the entire practice. I mean, overall, philosophically, I think we both agree it should be banned. I think it's barbaric to be executing people. Very often, these people in prison have a lot of revelations and gain a lot of insight, and try to be the best people they can be. Not all of them, but a lot of them have religious conversions in jail. I mean, it's kind of a cliche. So are you executing the person that committed that crime in 1988 by the time you're executing them now? Does this man deserve to be executed the way that man arguably did?
It's also, for me, I think, you lock someone in jail for life if they've committed murder in order to protect the general population from being killed by a dangerous person, and you use that penalty, obviously, as a deterrent so that people are less inclined to go out and commit heinous crimes. It's not the role of the state to exact emotional revenge on behalf of the victim.
That's it.
It's not the role of the state to satisfy a victim by filling them with a sense of vengeance or retribution. There's a difference between justice and vengeance, right? That's the first scene of The Godfather, right? He says, you're not asking for justice, you're asking for revenge or something like that. Those are different things. And so if capital punishment provides some sort of closure for the victims' families or loved ones, I'm sorry, it's not the role of the government to do that. They should be given help, piecing their lives back together. It's a horrible trauma, obviously, but it's not the role of the government to give you that emotional satisfaction. It's the role of the government to protect the people and to provide deterrence for committing heinous acts of violence. You could do that plenty well with life in jail. You don't have to resort to this kind of barbarism.
In some ways, you could argue it's worse.
In some ways, you could.
Entire life in jail.
It's worse. In some ways, you could argue it's worse. But what it is it's, and as you said, it's reversible to an extent.
It's reversible if you made a mistake.
Exactly.
And as cliche as it is, it's not going to bring their mother back.
Right. Exactly. All right. Let's keep plugging along here. Folks, Ellen Jimerson, thank you for covering this. A Holman is in Atmore, where I was born. This makes me sick to my stomach. Smith suffered horribly for no reason. Yes, Ellen Jimerson, our friend Ellen, is in Alabama. So thank you for that comment, Ellen. Appreciate that. Penny Arcos 1, thanks for the $2. MAGA televangelists and faith healers actively promote the death penalty, especially Lauren Boebert's backers at Charles Bible College. It's sick. I mean, it's they believe in that retribution. It's horrible. Ellen also says in relation to this story, thank you for the donation. Russell, I don't think you mentioned the first jury recommended life without parole, but the judge overturned that in favor of death.
I didn't come across that in anything I read. So thank you.
Wow. Yeah, good to know. Okay, Pickle the Pirate, thanks for the $10. We were told we were fighting for the side of good against fascism, and the enemy was evil. The mistake we made was assuming our own side was good. Howard Z is in. I'm fighting in World War II.
Well, there's a quote. I don't know where it originates. It's a Russian quote. We liberated Europe from fascism, and they never forgave us for it.
Right. Exactly. P. Walker, sudden right-wing support for Fetterman illustrates the low price they charge to flip positions. Yes, how Democrat of them. Yes, good point. Mm-hmm. Good point. Yep. Siddhartha Vicious, he needs an industrial space for DNC tune-ups. Yeah. That is some house he's got there. Some home. Lars and Ruin, thanks for the 99 cents.
He's got the old transformer in there. That's where they created them. That's where they stitched them together from dead bodies. They got the table there with the electric arc.
The workshop. Pickle the Pirate, thanks for the $10. Can't get past the Pelosi clip. She took an oath to the Constitution, suggesting Fed agencies investigate lawful protesters should be a sackable offense. Unbelievable. Authoritarianism is already here. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Yeah, I want their funding
she should
investigated.
be in prison, and it just shows you how hollow our system is that Nancy Pelosi is not in an orange jumpsuit. Yep. Nobody can pick stocks like that. Nobody. The best in the business, she outtrades them every single fucking year. It is open robbery.
Yep. No other way to say that. Vigeland and Fiorentini, righteous stupidity. Riffside, Kamala and Finish is horrible. She's literally horrible. Harris. Interesting, Riffside. Thank you. Snap, crackle, and pop. Kamala Harris. Yeah.
You know what I just found out today, because I guess they don't feel a need at lesson 10 to tell you Spanish for tar. But apparently La Brea means tar. So the La Brea tar pits are the tar pits.
Tar pits.
Yeah, Steph just told me that.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, that's funny. U.S., this is allowed. Also, U.S. Sharia law is bad, says Kiki the Fish. Yeah, no, that's just, what standing do we have to lecture anybody? I mean, it's just insane. Fill a guy's blood with nitrogen. Why? $2. Next up, the Brazen Bull. Thank you, Siddhartha Vicious. Okay, let's go. Move on. We got a couple more segments here, and then we will be doing a post-show Q&A over on Rumble. Jake was very cool to set up a redirect link for us, so if you want to go over to Rumble for the Q&A, you just go to dudissidents.com/Rumble. That'll take you right to our current live stream over there. And we've got a bunch of you guys over there right now. What do we have? As of Jake's last update, 1,368. So between YouTube and Rumble, got well over 3,000 of you lovely people watching right now. Thank you so much for being here.
You.
Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button over on YouTube. Hit that follow button over on Rumble. That is super important. And thank you guys all for being here tonight. Couple more segments before we switch over. As we've reported on many times on this show over the past few weeks, Arab and Muslim voters are organizing a boycott campaign for the Democratic ticket this November. The Biden campaign thought it might be in their interest to try and patch things up with them, but they were told, thanks, but no thanks. Not welcome here. Arab leaders cancel Dearborn meeting with the Biden campaign manager. This from the Detroit News. The organizer of a planned meeting between President Joe Biden's campaign manager and a group of Arab and Muslim American leaders in Dearborn said it was canceled Friday after some in the wider community objected to the gathering amid fury over Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. Some Arab American political leaders from Metro Detroit, who are Democrats, flatly rejected any overtures from the Biden campaign until the president advocates for Israel to cease its military assault on Gaza. Assad Turfi, I'm not sure how to say that name, who was coordinating the sit-down of Arab leaders and officials with Biden's campaign in Dearborn, said he made the decision to cancel Friday afternoon's group meeting, quote, in the best interest of the community. As the community got to learn about the meeting, there was definitely a lot of outrage, and ultimately the decision was made to cancel the meeting, said Turfi, the deputy county executive of Wayne County, whose family is from Lebanon. The meeting was to be between the Biden campaign manager, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, and 10 to 15 Arab American elected officials, office holders, and representatives from the larger community organizations, Turfi said. The Biden campaign did not comment on the cancellation of Friday's group meeting. Other meetings between Rodriguez and individual leaders of the Arab community in Michigan went forward Friday, according to two sources. The group meeting was among several that Rodriguez was convening with leaders from Michigan, including local elected officials and leaders from the Arab and Palestinian American, Hispanic, and Black communities. The meetings are part of an effort by the White House and Biden re-election campaign to meet with core constituency groups around the country, and the campaign said it will continue to have thoughtful conversations with groups. Turfi said the Biden campaign had requested the meeting with Arab leaders and officials in recent weeks as part of the listening tour. Oh, now they're on a listening tour. I love how they think that this bullshit is going to work. They think all this lingo. What do you think? You're going to trick people into thinking you're not enabling a mass murder of their people your fucking bullshit listening tour. That might work on the rich, like, Chardonnay and Xanax, soccer moms that make up your core donor base and your core voting group. You're not going to trick Arab and Muslim people with that nonsense as you're doing what you're doing. Listening tour. Going on a listening tour.
Well, to be fair, it has worked up to this point, but a genocide just kind of that's really flipping the table and changing the game.
Yeah, that tends to work amongst people who have no real skin in the game, amongst people for whom the stakes are ultimately pretty low.
Well, if you remember, there was that audio that leaked in 2020 where he had to sit down with I think it was Latino leaders, and he was talking to them like they're his fucking valets.
Right.
Like he's screaming at them and condescending to them.
Yeah, I remember that. Wow, that was good call.
So yeah, no, I mean they have every reason to think they can get away with using these communities as props, but not this time.
No, not this time. Arab leaders from the Muslim and Christian communities had intended to share firsthand the sentiments of the community and estimated that many who supported Biden in 2020 likely won't do so in November, citing 26,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza and thousands of others displaced or facing famine, Turfy said. Unless something drastic happens, you have lost the Arab American and Muslim community. At this point, from what I can see, there's no winning them over. That was the idea of the meeting, Turfy said. Until there's a ceasefire, the overall consensus in the community is they're not welcome here. Dearborn Mayor Abdullah Hammoud, Wayne County Commissioner Sam Beydoun, and Democratic State Reps Alabas Farhat of Dearborn and Abraham Ayash of Hamtramck were among those invited to the meeting with Biden's campaign manager. Hammoud, Farhat, and Ayash declined. Farhat said he agreed with the decision to cancel. This pushback is not just about failed policy, it's about humanity, Farhat said. It's unrealistic to expect that political conversations will resecure our support for the president when only a ceasefire can truly reopen that door. Only a ceasefire can truly reopen that door. Ayash, who serves as Michigan's House Majority Floor Leader, said he will not allow our communities to be utilized for political expediency after 110 plus days of U.S.-backed Israeli bombings of Gaza. Good for him. That's what a representative has to do, right? You have to not only go to bat for your people, but you have to protect your people from being used as pawns, from being used as political props. Saying you're not going to come here and take a photo op with our people so that you can spread the message to the world that, hey, look, we had a conversation with the people of Dearborn and Michigan, and we're on, we're listening, right? This is our listening tour. We're here to try and smooth things over, work it out. Because that's how they would have used this, right? They would have taken some photos. It would have been in the press. And he's saying, no. We're not going to let you do that. Where's the beef? Give us the policy or don't come to us, period. We're not even letting you in the door because we're not going to be used in this way. Final slide. Since October 7th, I have received zero correspondence from the White House, the DNC, or MDP, I'm assuming that's Michigan Democratic Party leadership, about the concerns from our community on the ongoing genocide unfolding in Gaza, Ayash said on social media. He added that the lack of outreach to him as Michigan's highest-ranking Arab and Muslim state elected official showed there isn't a legitimate concern or respect for our communities here in Michigan and broadly across the U.S. Hammoud, the Dearborn mayor, tweeted Friday that it's not a moment for electoral politics. When elected officials view the atrocities in Gaza only as an electoral problem, they reduce our indescribable pain into a political calculation, Hammoud wrote. I will not entertain conversations about elections while we watch a live stream genocide backed by our government. That's another great point. The reason they're interested in taking a meeting with you in the first place is because there's a vote coming up in less than a year. Yep. If this were 2021 and this happened, they wouldn't even be going for a meeting with you because they figure, well, we don't need your vote for 3 years anyway, so fuck you. The only reason they're even asking for this meeting is so that they can get some good press heading into a campaign season. And so they're not messing around. They don't sound like they are bluffing. They don't sound like they're going to fold. That would be bad news for Nancy Pelosi, who said, on CNN this morning, well, we trust that at the end of the day, people's pro-choice, pro-LGBT sentiments, people's concerns about gun violence are going to supersede this. Not with these voters. Not with these voters. And if you lose Arab and Muslim voters in these numbers in Michigan, it's extremely difficult to win Michigan. And if you don't win Michigan, it's extremely hard to get to 270 votes. So this is a major problem. And there's no evidence so far to suggest that Biden is on the road to solving it. And good for these people for saying, we're not even going to talk to you. Call for a ceasefire, negotiate a ceasefire, then come to us. Otherwise, we're not even interested.
All right, Putin puppet. That'll be enough of that.
Russell's going to be like, investigate Keaton's finances, not mine.
Investigate Keaton's finances, because that guy, man, he's eating a lot of that stuffed crust pizza for a delivery driver.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
No, this feels like, in so many ways, a lot of us said when we walked away from the Democratic Party, everyone's going to get here eventually. Right. Eventually, as conditions deteriorate, more and more people are going to get red-pilled. More and more people are going to realize that the Democratic Party is offering you absolutely nothing. They're going to have a shrinking base of the most privileged, superficial people in society who can afford this kind of politics. And as conditions deteriorate, that's going to constitute less and less people. Wait until the AI comes for the PMC, motherfuckers. You see how Democrat they are then. That's when they're going to find out they thought they were insiders and they're actually on the catering staff. But I think that's part of what you're seeing with Gen Z. I think you're seeing it with this community. I think you're seeing it with a lot of the black community. You're seeing stunning numbers in the polling, particularly from black men, about how they plan on voting in 2024. It's more and more people are getting there. They're getting where a lot of us got. Some of us got in 2016. More of us got there after the outcome of 2020. Hey, if you're never prepared to walk away, you have no leverage. More and more people are realizing this game is just never going to end. We're always going to get fucked if we're never prepared to let the other side win. If you're never willing to pay that price, they always are going to ultimately have leverage over you.
Yep. And they can always count on you to cave first. They can count on you to blink first. And even, just as bad, they will use you to convince others to do the same, which is what these leaders were worried about. They're worried about Joe Biden coming in here on his fucking listening tour. He'll hear them out, what they have to say. He won't act on any of it. But he'll come away with some nice photos to put on his social media. Hey, look, we're listening. We're very concerned with what our Palestinian Americans have to say. And you're every bit as American as everybody else. And we see you, we hear you, blah, blah, blah. So they're concerned. We're not going to give you a political win for nothing. You're going to have to give us what we want first. And so good on them. Back from the road, thanks to the $4.99. How does this guy in Alabama get executed while Secretary Blinken walks free? That's not a justice system. Yep, should all be in prison.
Secretary Blinken is safe and effective.
Safe and effective. But he should be in jail. Should be in jail. Not hurt, but in jail. Kerry Scott, thanks for the $10. It's evident we're malevolent. How can we ever prevent what is so incredibly prevalent? Oh, look at him spitting his spoken word here. What seems inevident, especially our president following the precedent of every one of his sociopathic precedents. There you go. Beautiful. Thank you, Kerry.
A little beat.
We are going to play. Jake has queued up Kerry's song, which samples myself in his song. It's a 2.5-minute song. We'll be playing that right at the beginning of the Q&A on Rumble. So we will be switching over fairly soon, folks. General Zukov said that quote, Russell, from Tusker. Thank you, Tusker. Which quote?
If there were ever a reliable source, it's Tusker.
Go. It was black leaders, says Tusker, that had that online meeting, and the Biden team told them that they needed to take a backseat to the Latino community.
Was that what it was?
That what it was? Okay. I know he had some run-ins with the Latinos as well, but yeah, that was a big story.
No, now that you say it rings a bell, yeah. Like, I couldn't remember the details, but I remembered it was like this shocking audio of the way he would be talking to them.
they were saying something like it depends on who has more people in the country. It was like, well, there's going to be more Latinos than black people, so black people are going to have to take a back seat, or the other way around. Tusker apparently was the other way around. You know better than me. I'm just going off memory. But yeah, it was some like insanely insensitive thing to say. Like, yeah, well, there aren't as many of you as there are them, so of course we're going to prioritize them over you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If all those black leaders didn't walk out and say fuck Joe Biden, well, that's why they think they can get away with this.
Right. Exactly. All right. Final segment of the evening. Russell, you're up again. We have some news from north of the border, courtesy of the Public Substack.
Okay, so those guys, they've been doing really good work over there on the free speech beat. Very often they collaborate with Matt Taibbi at Racket. Not on this one, I don't think. But the Trudeau government used faked intelligence to illegally frame protesting truckers as violent extremists. Now, I just want to point out, I know we have a lot of people up in Canada. You seem to have a variety of the Canadian spotted shitlib that is perhaps an even more virulent variety than ours, because I had a lot of Canadians swearing to me how many Nazi flags and Confederate flags, how we were getting the trucker thing all wrong. We didn't realize what was going on there. But according to this, very much like what happens in the United States, they use some bullshit NGO to spread a false campaign, very much like a Hamilton 68 type of an organization. So the story begins in 2022 when news media outlets claimed that the Truckers' Freedom Convoy protest was a racist, fascist, or far-right movement. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the convoy a small fringe minority with unacceptable views and accused Conservative members of Parliament of supporting hate. Quote, Conservative Party members can stand with people who wave swastikas. They can stand with people who wave the Confederate flag, Trudeau said. Did they do that up there? They didn't have no fucking Civil War. On February 14th, 2022, Valentine's Day is a romantic. Trudeau took the extraordinary measure of invoking the Emergencies Act for the first time in Canada's history. The act gave the government sweeping powers to arrest protesters, freeze their bank accounts, seize property, and dismantle blockades, which is what Trudeau did. Central to Trudeau's invocation of the act was the alleged threat of right-wing extremism and violence, but new documents that podcaster Jeremy McKenzie obtained through Canada's Freedom of Information law showed that this drastic measure was based on fabricated intelligence. What's more, Canada appears to have shared this disinformation with other members of the Five Eyes Alliance. Five Eyes includes Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. Just because I didn't clip this part of the article. So basically, after World War II, the English-speaking nations got together and decided to collaborate on intelligence.
That's a very non-Orwellian name for a partnership, the Five Eyes Alliance.
Oh, yeah. No, that's not Orwellian. That's not creepy at all. Yeah. Not even a little. There are still many questions about why this happened. We have not received answers from key players involved. Trudeau's government and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police told public that they would reply to our request for comment, but so far have not. Trudeau was able to invoke the Emergencies Act by making the case that the truckers posed a serious security threat. It's true that there were other factors in the invocation of the Emergencies Act, but the government's case rested on claims that a Canadian podcaster was a violent extremist. The government additionally claimed that 4 men in Coates, Alberta, known as the Coates Four, were connected to the podcaster and had conspired to murder Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Canada's national police force. A government-funded NGO called the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, or CAN, that's not too James Bond villainy, created the falsified intelligence that the Trudeau government relied upon to frame the truckers. Khan claimed that Mackenzie, the podcaster, created a militia group based on a fictional country called Diagolon. All right, so I don't know how much you guys paid attention to this. When the shit libs are all over something, I know it's bullshit, so I try not to fill my brain with it too much, but I vaguely remember them going on about this, about Diagolon and some mysterious organization. Diagolon was never a militia group, according to the RCMP. Karima Saeed, a lawyer who filmed events at the Ottawa Convoy, and Elisa Hadigan, a journalist and educator on far-right extremism, debunked this claim through their analysis of the documents obtained through Canada's Freedom of Information Act. Khan did not respond to public's request for comment.
I wonder, sorry to cut you off. I wonder, I don't know if this is true, but Canada was creating this podcast registry. Is this how, could that be part of how they got this information? Through a FOIA request? Because I know they've been, like, you now as a podcaster, you have to register with the government in Canada.
Yes.
Yeah. So is that how maybe that's how they got this? Maybe not. I don't know. That's just speculation. But it seems like, well, how would they be able to get this unless there was some documentation?
It said that Mackenzie, the podcaster, got the information. They have their version of the Freedom of Information Act.
Right,
so
but I'm saying, why would podcasts be subject to that? How could you find? Because they went through this whole catalog, right? Oh no, that's public. I'm sorry, that the public went through the whole catalog of episodes.
Right.
Sorry.
Diagolon
never
wrote.
Mind that. I mixed that up. My apologies.
So we'll fix it in post.
Fix it. In post.
Diagolon wrote Saad and Hadigan lacked the typical features of a militia, including a membership system, a clear hierarchy, a rank system, and a code of conduct. In reality, Diagolon was simply Mackenzie's podcast fan club, and internal communications show that RCMP knew that. The government-funded Khan also suggested that Diagolon was white supremacist and accelerationist, an ideology that advocates for societal collapse. This characterization took hold. Canadian Senator Paula Simmons stated in the Canadian Parliament debate over the public order emergency that Diagolon wanted to, quote, accelerate racial conflict to lead to the eventual creation of a white ethno-state, unquote. But neither Mackenzie nor any of his followers ever claimed that during hundreds of hours of live streams, according to Saad and Hadigan. Mackenzie was arrested in January and March 2022 for charges unrelated to the Freedom Convoy and the Coates case, and which the government has since dropped. The Coates Four, however, are still in prison and have yet to stand trial. Gord McGill argued in Newsweek that this is because to release the Coates Four would be to admit not just to the fact that Canada imprisoned men unjustly and denied them bail, but to call into question Trudeau's every action since the beginning of the Freedom Convoy. So we subscribe to Public. They are worth subscribing to. They do a lot of great investigations like this. There are some things in there that, again, for brevity, I didn't include, but it gets into kind of how the Coates Four were framed, essentially how, one of them works in the mines and he had dynamite and they claimed the dynamite was for a plot to overthrow the government. So Canada, as a lot of you know, I've been working on an article about it for a while. Things got a little complicated, so I haven't been able to finish it. But part of the reason I'm fascinated by Canada is it seems like all the worst trends that we're seeing in Western countries, and particularly in English-speaking Western countries, are coming to a head there fastest. It seems like Canada, all of these assaults on freedom of speech, all of these tactics of smearing all populist movements as hateful and white supremacists as they're trying to do to the farmers in Europe now, all of the just crazy critical theory ideology from gender to race, having segregated theatrical performances, like all of the just people's children taken away from them. All the crazy just seems to have got, and the euthanasia is probably the most dystopian element. The government literally commissioned a study on how much money it was going to save the health department. I can't imagine something that is more lib than creating a euthanasia law under the guise of compassion while counting the beans and looking at what it's going to save you on chosen suicide. For all of these reasons, Canada, to me, it's very brave new world. It's very much what a liberal dystopia looks like in many ways, in many of these trends. And anyone who knows the workings of the media, the workings of the government, always took the claims about the truckers with an enormous grain of salt. And this reporting just confirms that.
Yeah, this reporting suggests that they made those accusations up. They just manufactured them. There was never any violent extremist group. There was never, any threat of any militia overthrowing the government. That was just a way there was just a thing they used to throw the ick factor on a movement that they didn't like. They did that to the yellow vests in Europe. That was in 2018. And they did that here. And I remember, that was early 2021, I guess. That was the line. That was the line, that this was a white supremacist movement, even though a lot of the drivers were brown themselves. I remember seeing a lot of that, that's just a great investigative piece. Public does a lot of those kinds of things. And so it's definitely worth checking out. The WikiLeaks fan, Biden and the Democrats would rather lose the election than changing U.S. policies in the Middle East. So, of course, sure thing. Noah, thanks for the $2. Talking electoral politics, 70% of your content. No, we didn't talk electoral politics much on this show at all. I think we did one segment devoted to electoral politics. So your math is wrong. What did Dick Cheney say to John Edward? Yeah, your facts are wrong. Your facts are wrong. Andres Torres, I got there in 2012. Haha, peace. Well, good on you, my friend.
Good on you, man.
I'm
amazing slow learner.
What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck is who talking about? Us? We did that. Was that in response to the Trudeau story? That's the thing. That story didn't really get out there. A lot of public stuff, but that's the one thing about Substack that now it's horrible because Elon, prick that he is, really made it very difficult for Substack articles to have reach outside of Substack. Luckily, there's a lot of people on Substack. So, like when Matt Taibbi shared Russ's article about a month or so, it really got out there because there's a lot of users on Substack. I think there's millions on Substack. So, but it would be nice if you could actually, like, the way an article like that would actually, like, make an impact in the culture would be if you could tweet it out and the tweet wouldn't get throttled and people could share it and people could comment on it. And unfortunately, because of free speech champion Elon Musk, that's not really possible.
This is one of many reasons I have zero patience with the Elon Musk knob gobblers. It's just fucking ridiculous. What are you, a peasant? Oh, Lord Musk, please give me my free speech. Come on, man. Be a fucking person. Don't be a peasant.
I mean, you're throttling one of the only committed free speech publishing outlets online, which is Substack, and you throttle them.
It came up on the live show last night because we were covering the Taylor Lorenz video about the collapse of the kind of media that would have someone like her as a member, which everyone is rejoicing about. And she's talking about how terrible the world would be without journalists. We're not talking about a world without journalists. We're talking about a world without journalists like you, which looks pretty fucking good to most people. You could make the argument that the free market, for all the people who are so, into triumphal capitalism, and I'm sure she's amongst them, hey, man, the free market worked it out. You're seeing a renaissance in journalism, just not in old media, not in legacy media is dying. And now it's moving in a way, it's going back to the old days where you subscribe to the newspaper, but it's starting to reflect the same a la carte things you're getting in streaming services, right? You're not ordering the whole cable package. You're ordering what you like. You like HBO, you like Netflix. Okay. So you like Matt Taibbi, you like Glenn Greenwald, you like Gray Zone, you like Seymour Hersh, you subscribe to those people.
Right. And rather than have a paper boy toss it on your doorstep, it comes in an email. every time they
Right.
drop something. Yeah, it's a great platform, but it would make a lot more impact if they would actually let people like tweet and retweet them. Celeste Holmes, if genocide isn't your red line, you don't have a red line. Genocrat supporters would cheer nuclear war if it's a genocrat pushing the button.
You're absolutely right.
100%.
You're absolutely right. That's what's sick about it.
John M. in Minnesota, thanks for the $10. The Intercept is the entire leaked video of Biden's meeting with the leaders in the black community.
You're fucking kidding. Yeah.
Oh, it was a big Zoom call, right? Is that what it was? I think I saw.
Was it
some
a
of
video? I've only ever heard the audio.
I think there's a video of but it's a lot of faces on one Zoom call.
Yeah, I remember this, where he was talking about the mixed race couples in TV ads.
Evidence of progress. Yeah, wow. Insane. David Santucci, meanwhile, the Canadian Parliament later gave a standing ovation to a literal Nazi. Exactly. As they denounce extremism. Miguel for Liberty. Is John Kirby president of the United States? He thinks he is. Yeah, he's on a power trip. I heard there's a power struggle between him and Karine Jean-Pierre. He wanted to take her job, something like that. Heard they were not getting along. Does Richard Haas rule and run Hollywood? Does Richard Haas rule and run Hollywood? Not to my knowledge.
I don't think so.
Obligatory black sheep. I think I'm past the point of hating our politicians when the problem is the sheep voters who have zero critical thinking skills and continues to do as they are told. Certainly a big problem. My friend. Alrighty, folks, that is our show. We are going to head over to Rumble for our post-show question and answer. Paid members on patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, and DoDissidents.locals.com. We'll have call-in access to that Q&A, but all are welcome to watch. All are welcome to join. To join, please head over to DoDissidents.com/Rumble. Put that in your URL. That takes you right to the current live stream. Thank you to Jake in the booth for making that happen for us. We have over 1,500 of you guys waiting over there, so that's awesome. We are going to take a 5-minute intermission after we close this show out, after which point we will be over there. Carrie, if you head over there, we are going to play your song. I know I promised you that. We did not forget about you. So we will be continuing the party in 5 minutes over on Rumble. We are back on this channel Wednesday night. Are we doing 8 p.m. or 9 p.m.? Wednesday.
I mean, we can do 8.
Yeah, we could do 8. Why not? All right, we'll go Wednesday night at 8 p.m. That's right, because there's no Jimmy show on Wednesday. That's right, because the schedule's Tuesday, Thursday. So we'll be back here Wednesday night at 8 p.m. We will have a Patreon.
I will be sitting in with Jimmy on Tuesday.
Russell will be co-hosting the Jimmy Show, sitting in on Tuesday, and we'll be back here 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow for our members-only live stream. So you'll be seeing plenty of us this week, but right now, if you go to DoDissidents.com/Rumble, you can hang out with us for the post-show Q&A. We thank you all very, very much for being here this evening. It was a pleasure. As always, until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.